My name is Beth, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with codependency, self-worth, and eating disorders. Now go. Doing all right, doing all right. It's a Friday night. It's a little windy. I was like, man, it's so windy outside. I don't want to leave my dog home by herself, and it's a dog, and it's wind. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so codependent with my dog. It's sad. So, peanut gallery over there. So last week, Rich had his computer up here, and the battery was dying, and he was starting to panic, and he made a plea to get a laptop for Christmas. So I don't want y'all to drink the Kool-Aid. I offered this man a computer for his birthday in October, and he said, nope, this is fine, this one's fine. So if y'all felt sorry for him last week, no. He's making this sad face. So yeah, now he'll probably get a computer for Christmas, right? Are you going to fix it, are you? Oh, that poor computer. I don't know how long they live, but we're going to find out. All right, so we are currently on step 3, the power of surrender, our favorite word. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Romans 10:13 says, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Who? Everyone. Look at your neighbor and say, that's you. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Amen? And our core question tonight is, what worth wounds do you carry, and how have these wounds impacted your relationship with God and others? So we love step 3 because we love to do the old phrase, I can't, God can, so I think I'll let him. And step 3 is, so I think I'll let him. But the key to that is, I will let him. Because you can hold on to whatever that thing is. You don't have to let go. So when you say, I think I will let him, it is an act of our will. We have to surrender whatever that thing is. He's not going to take it from us. And we can say, you know what? Yeah, I can't, God can. I think I'll let him. You know what, God? Here it is. This is yours. It's all yours. You can have it. I'm done with it. Go ahead. What's next? That's not how it works either. That's not how it works either. We can sit and wait, and we're going to be sitting there waiting. We got to take action, right? It can't be a hands-off approach. We all love to say you can move mountains, but God's going to hand you the shovel. Because sitting and waiting and doing nothing, it's probably not going to work. So I want to show you something. I pointed at this earlier. And truth be told, this is a sad representation because there's a few coins in there. These are my chips. And it should really be, oh my gosh, several times longer than this. I should probably be able to leave a breadcrumb trail from here to my car and back of chips. So how many times do we take a chip and we say, here you go, God. I'm giving this thing to you. I'm giving this anxiety and depression to you. Thank you for taking it. I surrender it to you. And then we pick it right back up. And we take it home with us. So when we come back the next Friday night or 2 or 3 Friday nights later, I'm like, man, I'm so tired of this anxiety and depression. God, I'm giving it to you. And then we pick it right back up a day or 2 later. And that's what I have done. And like I said, this is a poor representation. There should be many more chips on here. But do you know what these chips mean? They're not failure. It's keep not quitting. 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 That's what these represent. It's not failure. We call it relapse. But it's keep not quitting. That's what these represent. Not failure. Those are not failures. Those are victories. Every single one of those are victories. So when you pick up chips, surrender chips, and you collect those coins, they're precious because those are victories. That's the whole reason we have chip ceremonies, is because we want to celebrate with you. It's a lot of celebration, and there's some heartache in there too, but there's more victory and more celebration in there. So I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about worth wounds, since that's our core question. So how do we get these worth wounds? What are they? And I love the Bible. That's my go-to for looking up background. I love stories that are in the Bible. They come alive to me when I read them. I try and picture them in my head and play the movie. So I want to share the story of Naaman with you. Have you guys heard of Naaman? Do y'all know who he is? A lot of you? Okay. So if you want to read about Naaman, he is in 2 Kings chapter 5. I'm going to start with verse 1. I'm kind of going to read a little bit of the scripture, and then I'm going to talk about what it means to me. So the king of Aram had great admiration for Naaman, who was the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. So Naaman was the commander-in-chief over the army of Aram. He was the top dog, and the king loved him. But the king loved him because he brought the land, or the kingdom of Aram, all these victories. And the reason Naaman had these victories was through God. It says that God blessed him with these victories. They had even conquered Israel. That was one of the lands that they conquered and took slaves back. But it says Naaman had leprosy. And we've all heard about leprosy. It's in the Bible. I was going to get some pictures and show you guys what leprosy can look like, because it's a pretty ugly disease. I'm a hospice nurse, and I have seen some ugly stuff. But these pictures were pretty gross, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that because that would be mean. I do that to my sister. She had to roll the window down in the car one time. She was like, stop. So I won't do that to y'all. But it is a disease. It's caused by a slow-growing bacteria. It affects nerves, skin, eyes, and lining of the nose. Untreated, which back then they really didn't have treatment. There was no cure back then. It could result in crippling of the hands. Basically, they'll lose fingers and toes, if you've ever seen it. Paralysis, blindness. And if it's the right strand, there's different strands of leprosy, it could cause death. So Naaman, even though he's this powerful warrior, he's the commander of the army, he's got a hang-up that he can't get rid of that is affecting him. And he knows eventually this hang-up is going to cost him his job. It's going to cost him his family, because if he gets into a contagious state where he can transmit it, he's probably going to have to leave them. And eventually it could cost him his life. Ironically, I had to look this up because I just love how everything ties together. The name Naaman means beauty. Isn't that ironic? Is the only word I could think of. How crazy is that? It means beauty. And it's also the title of one of their sun gods. But so here's a man whose face is basically going to rot off, and his name means beauty. So verse 2, at this time, Aramean riders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. One day the girl said to her mistress, I wish my master would go see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy. So right there we see this captor, this little girl. She has been taken from her home, put into slavery, but apparently she has forgiveness in her heart. Because she has enough love and compassion for, she's not even Naaman's slave, she's his wife's slave. And she says to the wife, I wish he would go to Samaria and see the prophet and get healed. She's got faith. I would love to think that this little girl has probably seen the prophet, and we're talking about Elijah, heal people. And she knows it's possible. And she wants this victory for Naaman, that hang-up that he's got. So she tells her mistress, why doesn't my master go see the prophet? Have you asked anyone lately, hey, I wish you would come to RA with me? Might be something there for you. All it takes is one question, one invite. My brother, he's 3.5 years younger than I am. He started drinking when he was 14 years old. He was an alcoholic for, I think, 24 years. He had been to AA, NA, I don't even know how many A's he had been to. He had lost his wife, his kids, his home. He was living with our parents. Lost his driver's license several times, spent many nights in jail. And my sister says to my brother one day, "Hey, we've got a recovery program at church on Friday nights. Why don't you come with me?" One invite. He's been clean and sober now for 6 years. One invite. So if that one invite totally changed my brother's path, changed his life forever, and the path that he's on now is so different because he was on a road to destruction. This little maid girl, this servant girl, her one invite is going to change Naaman's path forever, and he doesn't even know it yet. So Naaman's wife brings this message to Naaman. She could have dismissed it and said, yeah, I hear you, and left it there. But she sees the faith in this little girl. She's like, there's got to be something to this. So she tells it to Naaman. What has she got to lose? Hey, Naaman, she says, there's a prophet in Samaria who could heal you. So what does Naaman do? He tells the king, verse 4. So Naaman told the king that the young girl from Israel had said, "Go and visit the prophet." The king of Aram told him, "I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel." So Naaman started out carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. That was a lot back then, a lot. The letter to the king of Israel simply said, "With this letter, I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy." So Naaman has enough faith in this little girl's words that he tells the king. And the king also has just enough faith to say, well, you know what, Naaman, I'll write you a letter. Go ahead and go. But Naaman has to act. He's got to go. He can't sit and wait for it. The prophet's not going to come to him. He's got to go after that thing. So he loads up all of his chariots with all of this gold and silver and these clothes, and he sets out to Israel. Verse 7. So when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, "Am I God that I can give life and take it away? Why is this man asking me to heal someone with leprosy? I can see that he is just trying to pick a fight with me." So plainly, the king of Israel's scared. He's like, oh, this king of Aram is picking a fight with me. He knows I can't heal this man. So when I send Naaman back with leprosy, they're going to attack Israel again, and they're going to kill me and take what little we've got left. So he thinks that it's just a ploy to bring disaster. So he tears his clothes, he gets all upset. But what's missing is the prophet. The king wrote the letter to the king of Israel and didn't mention the prophet. So while the king of Israel is sulking and tearing his clothes and crying, "Woe is me," somehow Elijah hears about it. It says, "But when Elijah, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, he sent this message to him. 'Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel.'" So Elijah's ready. He's like, "Send him to me. Put your clothes back on. I got it. I got it." So Naaman went with his horses and chariots, and he waited at the door of Elijah's house. So I was telling you guys, I try to picture this stuff. So he's got, 750 pounds of silver. I could just imagine the room that would take. 150 pounds of gold, 10 sets of clothes, and they wore like layers upon layers. So, these huge bundles of clothes. It says Naaman went with his horses and chariots. So when I envision, Naaman at the door, it's him and a couple of his dudes waiting. No, it looked like Goldsboro Christmas Parade was parked out in the cul-de-sac because it says it took all of his horses and chariots. So Elijah's quite aware that they're there. The whole neighborhood knows that Naaman is there because all the horses and the chariots and the gold and the silver and all of his servants and the servants' servants and the horses and donkeys and, the food and the water and everything they brought with them is in his front yard. So he knows they're there. I just thought that was so funny. I was like, could you imagine looking out the blind and seeing It says, but Elijah, who knows they're out there, sent a messenger out to him with this message: Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River, and then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy. So see, Elijah didn't come out. He sent a messenger out. And then it says in verse 11, but Naaman became angry. Birth wound. He became angry and stalked away. I thought he would certainly come out to meet me. I expected him to wave his hand over this leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of the Damascus, the Abana, and the Pharpar better than any of these rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in a rage. So here we go. There's the birth wounds. Naaman is experiencing a run of emotions in that moment. And why is he doing that? Because it's not what he expected. He clearly said, I expected him to come out and wave his hand. So he's offended because Elijah didn't come out. He's hurt. He's upset. And then he just gets mad because he doesn't know what else to do. And he leaves in a rage. And then Naaman wants to compromise. He's like, well, I'm mad. This didn't go the way I thought it was going to. He was supposed to come out and just be healed. And, So he's hot. He's upset. So he's like, okay, well, wait a minute. I'm going to compromise here. Aren't the rivers in Damascus better? Why have I got to go to the Jordan? Why have I got to do it that way? Why have I got to go through step 12 or step 4? I don't want to do inventory. Why? Why do I have to do it that way? Isn't there a better way? Sometimes compromise does not work. It does not work with God. When he gives you instructions, ask Jonah. You remember Jonah? He didn't want to go to Nineveh. He says, no, I'm not going to Nineveh. God said, yeah, you're going to Nineveh. No, I'm not going to Nineveh. So he starts hiking the other way. God says, you're going to Nineveh. Gets on a boat and is cruising away from Nineveh. And a storm comes. The sailors throw him off the boat so the waters in the storm will calm down. Big fish snaps Jonah up. And where does the fish spit him up at? On the shores of Nineveh, right? So compromise, not a good thing. Doesn't work out well. And I wouldn't want all that stuff in my hair. So we'll avoid the belly of the whale. So when God says to you, call your sponsor, join a process group, reach out to your accountability partners, go to RA on Friday night instead of going to the grocery store. Those are the simple things. He's not asking you to start a 2-week tent revival in the corner. These are simple things. Go dip yourself in the Jordan 7 times. Verse 13. But his officers, they're talking to Naaman, his officers tried to reason with him and said, Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, go and wash and be cured. So these are his friends. They're talking him down off the ledge. They're like, calm down, because he was in a rage. He had left in a rage. They said, Naaman, you're this great warrior. And if Elijah had said, go slay the dragon and bring back his head, you would have been, all right, man, I got it. I'll be back in 2 days. I can do this. I am a mighty man. I'm a conqueror. But he said, go wash. You got offended. Go wash. The thing here is, the task was simple. It was easy because all God wants was his obedience. It wasn't about his abilities or what he could do, his warrior pride and wielding a sword or what he knew. It was obedience. Go wash in the Jordan 7 times. So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and he dipped himself 7 times. And as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. So that was 7 times he had to do this. 7 times. 1, nope, not healed. 2, nope, I'm still having anxiety and depression. 3, nope, kids still aren't talking to me. 4, I really want to drink I want some wine tonight with that meal. 5, oh, that pornography popped up on my computer again. 6, it's still not gone. God, do I really need to go to RA Friday night? 7, when he came up out of the water, that 7th time, it said his skin was like that of a baby or a young child. So if he had dipped 6 times and got out, went to the shore, he'd have gone home with that leprosy. Right? 7, God said 7. All Naaman had to do was be obedient, and he did. And Naaman was healed. So 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, what's that called? We love to say it. I wish we could print them on the back of these chips. Keep not quitting.